Okay, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kaylee Howarth, and I am with Marigold Library System. And I'm happy you could join us this afternoon for this webinar on using SimplyReports. Our instructor for today is Stephanie Thero with Yellowhead Regional Library. And without further ado, I'm going to pass it over to Stephanie.
Great, thank you. And thank you for joining me for No Shovel Required, Dig for Data with SimplyReports. Like Kaylee said, I'm Stephanie Thero. I'm the Client Services Manager at Yellowhead Regional Library, and I've been using SimplyReports for actually a decade now. I don't like saying numbers, but that's how long I've been using it. So we'll go through SimplyReports, and I'll go through the agenda right away. But if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat panel, and I'll stop at periodic breaks throughout my presentation and address those. As well, you can just also save them until the end, and I'll take the time to go through. The time allotted here is an hour and a half, so there should be about 30 minutes left for questions at the end. So, okay, so in today's webinar, we're going to stay loosely connected to this digging metaphor. The previous image is, if you're interested, is a limestone quarry out in Catamount. So that's just on the doorsteps of Jasper National Park. These are all pictures my husband sent to me. So it's a good metaphor for using SimplyReports. But first, we'll do an overview of what is SimplyReports. Then we'll get a handle of the controls and lay of the land and go over the navigation. Then we'll talk about breaking down the questions you have to identify the important pieces of information that will help you create the report and dig for that data. I'll show you how you can analyze some of the information you find, and in a section I call Then What, I'll go over what you can do with the report once you are satisfied with it, and end off with a couple of reminders and some security notes. So by the end of our session, you will be able to hopefully confidently navigate within SimplyReports, identify the common controls, values, and parameters, and put it all together to construct a custom report that are focused on patrons, items, and holds for your library. So what is SimplyReports? SimplyReports is a web-based tool, meaning you access it over the internet through a web browser, that is a supplement to the Find tool and Reports and Notices feature in Polaris. There are a number of very good canned and custom reports, specifically, and the Find tool can actually give you some really good, quick information, especially if you're looking for counts. SimplyReports fills in the gap if the information you need isn't in one of those reports, or if you need something that offers more options and more control of your data. You can run a number of reports either at the point of need or schedule them for later. When you've been given access and permissions by headquarters staff, you get to SimplyReports from the link shown on your screen here, https://catalog.trackpack.ab.ca/SimplyReports. And you'll get a login screen like this. And here you just log in with your Polaris username and password. This is the landing page you'll see. You are now in SimplyReports, so let me show you around. At the top of the page, you'll see tabs. The tabs are the category of report. You'll see a number of tabs, but may only have access to a few. You'll click on the tab and it'll say you won't have permissions for it, and that's okay. The main ones that you'll be looking at primarily from a library staff manager perspective would be patrons, patron account, holds, items, and my reports. I'm not going to be covering patron account today too much, but if you do have questions about it, I can answer them. Now, the patron tab is where you'll go if you're looking for information that's found in the patron registration work form and associated records, like item records. The patron account tab, this is all the financial information. So anything in the patron account work form will be found here, including related records such as patron registration information and item. Under the holds tab, you'll create reports using data from hold requests and the associated items. And then if you're following along under the items tab, you'll be using these to create reports with item record data. Then we'll leap over to a couple tabs to get to saved reports, the My Reports tab, third from the end there. And this is where you'll see your saved reports, where you can schedule reports to run later or run them at a certain point of time. Under tabs are subtabs. And these are the types of reports. So they're in each tab, you'll see a patron list report, a list report, a count report, which is numbers, statistical report, which is statistics on transactional information, and in some cases, history reports, which go a little bit more in detail and I will not be talking about those today. But if you do have questions, you can save those. Underneath that subtab, you'll see maximum rows to return and address type to use. I don't think I've ever changed those in my entire life, but that's just the number of rows of data that will be returned. So just under 1 million. If you're running reports larger than that, you probably need to filter those more. Below the subtabs, this is the meat of what your report is going to be with, is the report outputs. So that's your data fields. Now these vary by the type of report you are running. They represent the data in Polaris, in the database tables that you want to select. This will be using the language of Polaris. So it's a little bit kind of, you might scratch your head if you're just using this for the first time, but I'll show you in the next slide. All of this information is there, and it's just easy to kind of find if you make those connections between the report output columns and what's actually you see in Polaris. So when you're building your report, you choose a report output column, output, and you move it using those arrows into the column selected for output. So whatever is in the middle column box there will be what creates your report. In the order from top to bottom will be the order that it appears in the report from left to right. Now, if you want to sort any of the data by the report, if you want to sort it at the very outset, you highlight it from the middle column and you move it to the sort column. And we'll go over that when we build the reports. Below the report outputs, you'll see include header rows, text file, and Excel file options. That, again, those are the defaults that you'll probably always use. Include header rows just means that when you create a report, you'll have header rows. So if you choose patron barcode as an output, when you have your report, it'll have the column, the cell will say patron barcode, and then everything below will be barcodes. The Excel is the file format, and then if you wanted a text format, you could highlight text and choose your delimiter. Below that section are your filters. So your filters are a number of drop-down drawers that will vary by report. And I'll show you these and we'll get into more detail as we go through them. The filters are your limiters. They're your conditions. They are where you further refine the data that you're going to pull. So to give you a sense of what I mean when I say SimplyReports uses the language in Polaris, here's just a general item record work form. Every word that's on this page that's hard-coded on there, title, author, call number, owner branch, assigned branch, shelf location, circulation status, due date, renewals, original due date, all of those words in transit from, to, that's the language that those report outputs are going to be. So we see the other view, there's acquisition information, funding source note. There's the statistics at the bottom of this. So you see year-to-date circulation. So this would be item year-to-date YTD circ. The previous year circ would be item, because it's coming from the item record, previous year-to-date YTD circ. And then again, lifetime circ. All of the information, as long as you know in the item record or the patron record or the hold request work form record of the information that you're wanting to pull, you can find that language. And then this is the item record properties. When I would just click this little index card here, the card catalog, showing me the properties. And here I can see the creator, I can see the modifier name, modification date, all of that will become clearer as we create the reports. But also, as you can see from this view, my shelf location is none. That will become important if you're looking for information where there is nothing in that field, where it is not present. And that will be a checkbox in your filters where information is not present. It's good for identifying, say, improperly cataloged item records or where item information is missing. That is also important to know that it's there. Now, the biggest hurdle to using SimplyReports is knowing where you want to go. What is your goal? What information do you want to extract? We need to identify that before we get started in the application. Don't worry, it's easy to see through the fog with this one simple step. Write it down. Go to SimplyReports with a purpose. Know what you want to find out. SimplyReports isn't a place where you're going to play around with it until you find something interesting. If you want to do that, go to Reports and Notices, use the canned reports. Write down what you want your end goal to be, and from there you can interpret it. So as you write down what you want, are you asking for details? That's going to be a list report. Does your question start with, I want to know the number of or how many of something? That's a count report. Is it transactions you're looking at? So you want to know the number of checkouts, the check-ins, about registrations created, items created. That's a statistical report. If you're using Polaris fields or codes or library terms like barcode, collection code, cert count, name, material type, etc., then those are your report outputs. And if you find yourself limiting, saying where or by or whereby, those are your filters. If you know what you want and you break it down, it's formulaic. After all, SimplyReports was built to create custom reports without needing to know the coding language behind Polaris. So let's get started with some examples, and I will check right now to see if there's any questions. There are none.
Stephanie?
Yeah.
This is Kaylee. There is a question that came through in the question panel rather than the chat panel.
Okay.
And someone is just asking if they can transfer saved report parameters to another user.
No, you can't. That's a great question, but no, you cannot. The only way you would do it would have to have that person create the report and from the steps that the person would tell them, unfortunately. Okay. So let's create our first report. So again, going to SimplyReports with a purpose. This is a basic curiosity question. I want to know the number of Blu-rays that my library owns. Okay, so let's break it down. You've got the number of, so that tells me it's a count report. We have Blu-rays and DVDs. So that indicates that you're going to be running an item report because that's the type of item you're looking for. But it's also going to mean you're going to need to select Blu-rays and DVDs as material type in your report outputs. Now, if your library is on top of things, you could alternatively select and limit by collection code if all your Blu-rays and DVDs have the same collection code, or even if they're the same shelf location. And lastly, my library, that means you're going to be limiting by item assigned branch. Now, I'm going to stop here. You could do this in SimplyReports. We've broken it down and we know what we're looking for, but personally, I'm all about efficiency. And if it's going to take me longer to log into SimplyReports, click on all the tabs and add all the filters, then if that's going to be slower than me actually going just into Polaris and running a quick find tool report, then I'm going to run it in Polaris. So I always choose the fastest way. So if you are not familiar with find tool counts, you can thank me later. Here is just some basic parameters of doing a count only. So this is an item record find tool, and here I've put item record status, search by record status, and for final. Now, why I chose this, I could have chosen any of the information under search by. I could have chose barcode, I could have chose all key fields and then put an asterisk. But this way I'm just pulling items that have not been deleted. And that's important to remember as we're moving forward. I limited by material type. And here's the Blu-ray, DVD. I just highlighted all of those. I'm going to be picking on Airdrie a lot in this because they've got lots of data. So under the branches tab in the find tool, I unselected every one and clicked Airdrie. And then here at the very bottom is what you'll see. So this is your count only checkbox. So it's not going to list everything. I certainly don't want 8,400 records listed. I just want to know how many I've got. So that is the quick and easy way of doing it. There it is. So let's make it a little more worthy of SimplyReports. So I want to know the number of Blu-rays and DVDs that my library owns between 2017 and 2018. Let's say in my library's plan of service, we're looking to increase the size of the collection size of Blu-rays and DVDs. So we want to be knowing how many were added in either those 2 years or the years individually. And so that is a creation date filter. So let's go run this in SimplyReports. So here we are in SimplyReports. Now that was an item count report that we're going to do. So I've already been logged in. I'm clicking on the items, item count reports. Now, as we go through, you may notice that I see more options under my filters, and that's just based on my permission levels. So here we're going to just choose material type because we just want that little bit of information. So I highlight it by clicking on it and move it over. And then I will search, open my general filters, and because I'm wanting to choose Airdrie, this just limits your branches quickly. Then we want to limit by material type. Now I scroll down, and because there's 3, the way you multi-select is you can, if they're all together, you can click on the top, hold down Shift, click on the last one, and it selects all of them. Or to individually highlight them, just hold down Control and click through. Now, I mentioned we want to always make sure to choose record status final. Otherwise, deleted records are going to come in there and you're not going to like that. And then our creation date. So again, just as you're scrolling through, if you're not familiar with SimplyReports, we can choose, if I just wanted to know how many that were in, I can further limit down by clicking this and then selecting in. If I don't select anything, that's actually going to highlight everything. It's going to run the report on everything. So make sure if you click on something to actually click on something to limit. Or if you change your mind, you just uncheck the button. Now the item date filter is what I want next because I want to limit by those dates in 2017 and 2018. Now the creation date is what I'm looking for. That is the date that the item was created. It's different than when it was published or first made available or modified. This is what I'm looking for. So let's say January. You have to click on the calendar to get the information. You can't type it. It's going to want you to use the calendar. So go to December 2018. So that's my 2-year period. And as you can see, since we're here, I'll just show you some more drawers. You can open and close the drawers and it will keep your information. Now you may notice the item date filters and the item relative date filters. So relative dates are what you would choose if you wanted to save the report to schedule it. Because if I saved this report and scheduled it, say to run once a month, but I had used these specific dates, January to the end of 2018, it's actually going to just run that every time. It's going to be the same results because it's the same dates. If you were scheduling something, you would want to have that creation date and choose between. The more than dates, so that's prior to the specific date over here. So anything that's more than means the action was taken earlier than the specified number of days before the report run date. So for instance, if I chose creation date more than 1 year before the report run date, that means it's going to tell me everything that was created before June, what's today, 19th, 2018. So that's 1 year ago from today. Nothing that was created between 2018 and today's date is going to be included in that report. So those relative dates, I always find you have to stop and think a little bit. And again, just knowing that the words are in those records and you can find them. Modification date you'll see in the item history. So if someone's made a change to, say, the call number or the status of something, that's a modification date. A status date is your circulation status. So changing from, well, sorry, that's the circ status date, is changing from, say, in to something else. And that was the last one. The call numbers, we could limit it all through the call numbers. Circulation filters, if we just wanted to see what was popular, we could limit by circulation. These are great for weeding reports. Item checkbox filters, all of these are checkboxes on the item record. And so you can say you had a special collection that you didn't display in the track pack, and you now wanted to display them in the track pack, but you didn't create a record set, you don't know what they are. You could simply do a report and display and check this off, and then it'll grab all of the ones that weren't displayed in the pack so that you can change them over. So anyway, let's run this report. Believe all the information is correct. So you just click submit, and here it shows me. So this is just a quick count. The library added nearly 1,700 DVDs, 344 Blu-rays, DVD combo packs, and then regular Blu-rays. I can download this. If this were a lot of information, I can download it simply by clicking on that, and then it'll download as an Excel to my computer, or I can save the report parameters for later, which I'll go over in a little bit. So that is that report. Now I want to change it a little bit. We want to continue increasing. So with increasing the collection of Blu-rays and DVDs, we want to increase the circulation as well. And so I want to know the names of the Blu-rays and DVDs, but with circulation counts, so that maybe I can buy duplicates of popular titles or create a display of the less circulated items to get those moving off the shelves. So here we want names. Names mean it's a list report to all of the Blu-rays and DVDs. That again is our material type. Item assigned library, we got that again. Now the circulation counts, that is, we're going to sort by the sum cert count. So back to SimplyReports. So this was an item list report. So it's going to look similar to the item counts, but we're going to be pulling out more information. So we want the item barcode. We want the call number. You can feel free to, even if you don't think the information is going to be pertinent, you can certainly add more columns and delete them. Item circ status, so I'm going to want to be able to sort by what's in, because if I want to be doing a display, I only want to know what's in. Shelf location, so I can find this stuff. Lifetime circ is up here. So again, that was in that item work form that I showed you under the statistics. Item material type, so we just want to make sure if it's a Blu-ray or if it's a DVD. I'm curious, maybe we can throw in the year-to-date circ count, because if it's been used this year, maybe I don't want to put it on my display. And then when we're talking about titles, there are two, because I need to know the name of the material. There's the mark sort title and the mark title. Now, anything with MARC in front of it is coming from the bibliographic record. So the MARC sort title is not going to have articles. So that's the, and, etc. The sort title takes that out so that it's easy for you to sort them. The MARC title, or sometimes it'll be shown as MARC browse title, that those do have the and. So if you're working in Excel and sorting that, it's going to sort off of the T as opposed to actually probably what you want. So sort title. Throw that at the end there, and then we're going to move circ status. If you want to move something up to the left-hand side of your report because you find it's more important, you just simply highlight it and click the arrows. And we'll sort by shelf location. Why not? Here are my general filters. Again, we're going to go Marigold. We're going to go Airdrie. My material type again. And as you switch between columns, if switching between drawers is not going to lose your stuff, but switching between columns is definitely. So if you make a mistake, just hit another tab or another sub-tab and it'll clear everything out. Now here I want circ status. Now this is a good one when you're running any kind of item reports to consider including is the circ status because you want in, out, maybe being held, transferred, which is stuff that's going to fill holds at another library, in transit, which is stuff that's coming back to your library from being filled holds. Those are all kind of available statuses. Everything else, oh, and our shelving cart. And then we always need to remember record status, final. So here we go. I don't need any more date filters or item filters. Don't need anything like that. There's a submit button at the bottom. Submit that. Here it's running the report. And here's everything. So, okay, you know what? Why did I sort by shelf location? That was silly of me. I want to sort by the circ count. So in order to remove this, simply just click that X on there that was highlighted, and then we'll sort by the lifetime circ count. Submit it again. It's being rerun. Here we go. Okay, so Spy Kids is the most popular item here with 368 circs. That's amazing. So maybe I'm not putting that in a report, but maybe do I need to buy it again? This also makes you look into what things are, probably heavy use. That's a lot of circs for a DVD. If you download the report, so here the preview that you get when you run a report is only 1,000 rows. So it says there's 7,900 rows left. You have to download the full report, and then from there you'll be able to sort however you want, filter however you want in Excel, and pull out what you're looking for your display. Now, you can also create a record set if you wanted. You could say I want just audio visual, which is the adult movies. I don't want to do anything with children and juvenile since they seem to be popular. I could run this report again, selecting my shelf location as audio visual, because that is an option to do, and then create a record set. So you simply, all you do is you type in the name. I could take test, let's do this, to save it. And then this is going to be automatically available in Polaris right now if I were to do an item record search for this name. And it's going to be attached to my username, so YRL Thero. If I wanted to share that with my coworkers, I would need to open that record set and change the owner to Airdrie Public Library. Okay, so that kind of concludes what I was going to talk about for item record reports. Are there any questions coming through, Kaylee, about that from there?
I'm not showing anything so far.
Okay, perfect. So next, let's talk about holds. So, and maybe another goal of your library is to enhance circulation to patrons and wanting to make sure that the holds they place, they're actually getting in a timely fashion. We know that there are long holds queues for popular titles, but equally so, sometimes holds for items where there aren't many copies drop off. So here, let's find holds that are expiring soon so that we can do some collection development. So we know which holds, that's going to be a hold list report. Expiring soon, that is, we're going to be looking at expiration dates. And then my patrons, we're going to be looking at the pickup location and patron branch. So I could look at one or either or both. Pickup branch means whoever is going to be picking up that hold at my library, that will be thrown in the hold. So it may not just be my patrons. If I also limit to the patron branch, so using Airdrie again as an example, Airdrie Public Library patrons picking up at Airdrie Public Library, that's what it's going to come in this report. So, oh, here we go. Let's go. We're going to the holds tab. Now this one here, we are going to put hold expiration date because remember the holds expire 1 year after they are placed, unless someone's changed the activation date. But by default, that's where they expire. Now we're going to be using a lot of bibliographic information on holds. And why do you ask? Why bibliographic records information? Because when holds are placed, they're placed on, by patrons typically, they're placed on the bibliographic level. So unless something is an item specific hold where the volume control is in the volume field, or if staff have placed item specific holds, primarily you're going to be seeing just bibliographic holds. So I want the bibliographic record ID because I'm going to be looking the title up afterwards. I've chosen the browse author, the browse title. I want the primary type of material. Primary type of material is taking it from bibliographic record. If I was looking at item type of material, that's the material type code in the item record. So it's two different places. So keep in mind that kind of difference. The marked publication year will move the expiration date for sort. Or wait, no, I don't want that. I want to sort by material type, primary type of material. Here we go for my holds. The pickup branch, I want anything being picked up at Airdrie. Hold status, I only want active holds. I don't care if they're already held, if they're expired, if they've been inactive, that means someone's kind of suspended the hold. Just want anything that's active, sorry. And then we'll go to my relative date filters, because here is where we have to kind of change our thinking. So if I want something that's an expiration date, say within the next 2 months, well, more than is not going to, because if I choose expiration date more than, that's not going to work. I could certainly put a specific time, so from today to say the end of August, July. But here we're going to change it, and we're going to do when the creation date was more than 10 months before the report run date. So that means nothing created between now and 10 months ago is going to be in there. So that means it's most likely going to be expiring within 2 months. Now, we submit. Here is a list. So there's 16 results, and it's someone's placed a hold on an atlas that they're not getting. Now, because of I'm focusing on Blu-rays and DVDs, let's look at this Blu-ray and DVD. So what do you do with the information? Now what? We're going to copy that. We're going to go to Polaris, and I'm going to search for this bib record. So why isn't this patron's hold being satisfied? So Sailor Moon Season 1, there's 2 linked items. There's 5 people on hold. So I'm opening up the bib record here, and I go links to the item records. Well, this is why no one's getting the holds. 1 copy is mending and 1 copy is lost. So these patrons are just going to be sitting around until their hold expired, unless someone adds another copy of Sailor Moon Season 1. So is that a priority for me in my library? Perhaps as collection development. Sometimes you'll see many, especially when it comes to popular titles, many entries on that line in SimplyReports. So as you can see, Untethered Soul is listed here twice. That means there are 2 people from Airdrie wanting to pick up at Airdrie with this book on hold, or with this audiobook on hold. So that's kind of your where what. Now here you'll see you can create a patron record set from the report results. So what that means is if I were to enter in the information and save it, it would create a record set of all the patrons who have these items on hold. And so if you wanted to go back and look at them and see and try and find either substitute items or develop that collection, you would be able to make sure that your patrons are getting those fulfilled. So any questions on that one, on the holds? And that's my only hold example. No questions.
Nope, nothing coming through.
Perfect. So moving along, we will talk about statistical reports. I personally love statistical reports. Let's say we've been tasked to examine staffing. So I'm either supposed to redistribute staff or increase or reduce my hours. And I want to know how many checkouts there are in my circ stations in the library, broken down by day and by hourly. I want to know what time. So maybe I can reduce hours. Maybe I can have just my self-check unit being at circ, having my circ staff doing something else. So what type of report will you run? Well, I already gave it away. It's a statistical report. And this is because of the transactions. We're wanting checkouts, holds, patrons. You're not, and if you're in the list or count reports, you're not going to get that. That's a statistical report on items, as well as I have my information. I want the transacting workstation. So I need to know the name of the workstation, which is in Polaris. Workstation is the staff computer, is the name of the staff computer. And then hourly each day, that's an hour, that's a day of the week. That's the report type we're going to be looking at. So here we go. Let's go to SimplyReports and do that. Now, this particular report, is this a patron or an item report? And I'll show you that sometimes you can run the same report from different places. So this is where the statistical reports are. And you have, so if I'm looking at checkouts, I have checkout as an option. And I have activity summary. So I can further refine the information that's being chosen. So if I wanted to know how many checkouts by of a certain material type is happening throughout the day, this is where I would go, and I would choose material type or my collection code or by shelf location. Now, conversely, if I go to the statistical report and go to checkout, it's still going to give me the same number. So if I had 10 checkouts between 9 and 10 a.m., that's going to be 10 checkouts if I did the item statistical report. It's going to be 10 checkouts if I did the patron statistical report. It's just going to be pairing it with a different subcategory. Here, I want to know what do I want to know again? I just want an activity summary, I think. But I'm going to stay here because I'm going to use this for my next report. My report, but as you can see, there are different. I can do it by patron branch. I can do it by patron code, patron postal code. So it's tying the checkouts to the patron information as opposed to tying the checkouts to the item information, but it's all the same number. So the report type, like I said, I want to know by the day of the week and by hour. If I just wanted hourly, the detail level will change. So it will give me it will just give me an hour. So if I chose this and did it for a month, it would just say 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. And it won't tell me what day or what day of the week it is. Day and hour is going to be more specific. It'll give the specific day. month, and not day of the week, but rather the day of the calendar day. Same thing, month. If you're crossing over 2 months or 3 months, you're doing a longer period. Here, I want to know day of week by hour. I want to know the transacting workstation detail. So I can run it by the organization, which means it's just going to give me for the library that I choose. If I choose include transacting user detail, I can choose, this will tell me the number of checkouts each staff person did that day. So say someone's complaining about Johnny, he's hiding, he's not being on the circ desk. Well, I can see how many books, how many materials that Johnny has checked out if I chose transacting user detail. Now I can choose transacting workstation detail to get a better sense of how many, which computer, which location, which workstation is being chosen more, or my self-check if I have self-check. So here I'm going to use, I'm going to choose Hinton because I know they have a self-check. I'm going to use a relative date as opposed to a specific date range, say 14. Now there is a drawer here, statistical report filters. I can't click on any of this. These will only be activated if you choose the correct subcategory. So if I chose patron branch, this would activate this particular field. So statistical reports are more limited in what you can choose, but that's because it's going across the transaction database and it is a larger report to run, which brings me to my next point, is that you want to be able to schedule these. You want to run them during off hours, during not busy times when you think of track as a whole. Especially if you're running like larger reports, please don't run these during the day. Something small isn't really not going to get too much, but if you're looking at long periods of time, like a month or more, try and do that off hours, because especially you're going to get this note if you want to run it now. Running large statistical reports may affect the system performance. So it's best to run them later. Now, I did run this report, and I saved it. We're going to go to my desktop, maybe. So here is what I get. So this is the statistical summary, 14 days of checkouts. So, okay, so this tells me, what's this deleted workstation? Whenever you see deleted, this is a workstation, that is actually your circulations coming from the e-resources. So that's Overdrive or Cloud Library circulations, because yeah, no one's using your library most likely at midnight. So that shows, so you can actually kind of see, it's not an actual person perhaps using it, it's maybe the automatic checkout when someone's chosen, to automatically check out an ebook or e-audio book to them. So that's why sometimes you get these. But here I've got it all broken down. Now I can sort it. I did choose a special sorting pattern to make sure I get, the morning hours. And my track pack, if you see track-pack in your statistical reports with workstations, that is your self-check machine. So all the self-check machines workstations is track-pack, it's just the way it works. So Hinton's self-check is track-pack, Airdrie's checkout track-pack, so it's going to be all the same. But it's different because it's associated with a different transacting branch. So you can run pivot tables. Choose, if you don't know how to do pivot tables, they're quite simple. Well, they're not simple, but they'll change your life once you learn. So you just highlight all the information, select all, and then you insert a pivot table. And so it'll put it on a different sheet, and you can sort the data and move things around and filter. So here I can see that my Circ 1, my Circ 2 workstation, Circ 1 is the biggest hit. It's 834 over the course of the week. Wednesdays and Thursdays seem to be the most popular days. When I look at my what's the name of these self checks, it's a little less popular. People maybe like the personal face, and is there any kind of trend? Looks like between, I don't know, kind of after school hours, not even into the evenings, people are preferring to, where do they prefer to go? So this is how you can analyze the data. Pivot tables, using the text to columns feature in Excel, those are the two kind of really main pieces that if you're going to learn about something in Excel to help you with your data, yeah, that's what you want. Pivot tables, text to columns to be able to separate dates, as well as filters, so learning how to use those. So that's just an example of where you can kind of find information. So maybe a goal is to get people to move more to the search station. So how can you do that? Looking at you getting the numbers and then figuring out how you're going to make things work in your library. So I'll go back to this. So what about if I have this is a similar question. My library board, let's say, is interested in knowing how many people who are not registered at our library are using our library. And because I'm curious, I want to watch this over time to see if there's a trend about what day or time of day that the patrons are using the library. So you have your subcategories. This is another patron statistical report, but our subcategory has changed. We want to look at that patron branch. So let's go there. So again, patron statistical reports. I have this report. I want to clear it out. Just by clicking on the sub tab again, it's refreshed. So here we go, checkouts, patron branch. I want to know, yeah, let's go day, week, and hour again. I could do day of the week. It'd be interesting, but if you do more, if you include more, you can always refine it, filter it out in Excel. Here, I'm back to using AirG. I don't need my workstation detail. I'm not really worried about where they're checking out their books, just who's using it. And I want to, because I want to keep an eye on this to see if there's any trends, I'm going to go for 7 days. So you can choose months, days, years, however, but let's just do 7 days. And then if you were interested, you could then, as you can see, I've activated the special filter that's going to work. If I were only interested in seeing, like, say, me library patrons or Chestermere patrons or wherever I could choose, I could refine that and would only pull those people. So here I'm going to run it now because it's only 7 days, and I'll show you. So this is all the information. So my transaction branch name, that means where the transaction happened, so where the checkout happened. These are the patrons. There was an Acme person who came between 3 and 4 and checked out five items. And so this is not single patrons, but number of items checked out. So this is interesting. We're going to go back to Excel. We're going to open up. Okay. Here I thought I would be. Okay. So I did run this report the other day, and so this is the information. I've put it in a pivot table, and here I can see just really quickly, here I've just done day of the week. I can see that, oh, my Me Library patrons come on Thursday and Friday, and they're rarely around on the weekend. But, Crossfield patrons seem to come on Friday. There's 57 checkouts that day. So here you can kind of see, and you can kind of keep a trend. And however you want to adjust service, you know that people from outside your community are coming on these particular days. So maybe that tailors your services or your programs to in a certain kind of way. So that's one way of interpreting that information. Now, if we go back to our report. I like this. I like it a lot. I want to keep looking at it. Here's what we do. We're going to save the report parameters for later use. So AIM checkouts, and then I'll save them. I can write a description. It's just for me to be able to see that later. So it says up here, your report 8 a.m. checkouts has been saved. Okay, where did that go? So let's go now and explore my reports. So what was that? That was just a patron statistical report. So you select one of the reports that you've done, and here it is. So by selecting it, I can run it again right now, and then it'll run, or I can schedule it. Publish and advanced publish, you don't ever touch. If you don't want to save this anymore, you can delete it. You can, now, edit is interesting. There are some you can't. See how it says edit is not allowed for this report? Okay, so I'll go back. But look where it took me. It took me to that report outputs. So here I can change it, run it again, and then resave it. So it sort of edits it, but you want to delete the old one if you do that. So we'll go back to this. I want to schedule it. So I highlighted it, I clicked on schedule. I can schedule. Why didn't that work? I don't. Schedule reports. Here we go. Okay, so I just didn't click on it. I want to just name it 8 a.m. checkouts. Patron branches, just for a little note for myself. I'll start it today. If I want to watch this over a year, I could put in, another year. I could put in nothing, and it will never expire. If I want to run it once a week, let's run it weekly on Sunday at midnight. That is off-peak hours. That is great. Do that. So we'll save the schedule, and it will run in a week again. Now, when you do get those reports and running them, where do they go? They go to file maintenance, which is the next sub-tab under my reports. So file maintenance, it was a saved report. Now, it didn't run. That particular one didn't run, but this one I scheduled did run. So it ran for me, and I click on this, and it'll download the Excel file. So, that was my saved reports. My scheduled reports, I have a whole bunch that I've scheduled, and then I go back in, and then I can delete the files once I download them. Now, what's this ad hoc report files, you ask? This is somewhere you should go in regularly and clean up. As you can see, I've got a lot of ad hoc files. What's an ad hoc file? An ad hoc file is everything, whenever you click submit, whatever happens, even if that is 0, nothing is brought back, it adds it to your ad hoc files. What you want to do is go in here and delete these regularly. You don't have to delete all of them if you know what some of them are. I don't know what half of these are. But where these reside on our servers. They take up space, so it's good, especially when they're big, giant ones, to regularly go in, highlight, and delete them. So it won't delete them off your computer if you've saved them. You've probably already downloaded them if they're meaningful for you. And then this just helps keep everything clean. So I do highly recommend, especially if you've used SimplyReports before, to go in and do that. Now, the other option sub-tab is scheduled jobs. So say, okay, what's my scheduled jobs? There's that checkouts report that I just ran, and I can see the schedule. Can I edit this? Yes, because I'm editing I can edit the start date. Here I'm going to put an end date, or I want to change the time, or I want to change the day of the week. You can save those changes. So my scheduled jobs. And then you really just have to click on each to see if you have anything. So I have these daily schedules, one that runs weekly, one that runs monthly, and nothing that runs at one time. So that's my report section. So that's the then what? What do we do with those files after? Does anyone, and as the question was earlier, there are some that you can't edit. You can't share the parameters with another user. you can't unfortunately have those files emailed to you. Those are kind of requests that are at a development level on the Polaris side that they may one day build, but for now you can't have them emailed to you. So that's kind of, that is the my report section. Were there any questions regarding that?
A question did come through. If you have it scheduled, do you have to be logged in to SimplyReports at midnight on Sunday for it to run?
That's a great question, and that would be awful, wouldn't it? No, you don't have to be logged in. It'll just run automatically without your even knowing. So, and that's why it's kind of sad that there's no email function, because you probably forget that you scheduled this. But they'll be waiting for you in your file maintenance. Yeah. Any other questions?
Nope, not seeing anything else come through.
Okay, great. So just a couple reminders as we kind of close up. Always remember to select the item general filter record status final for when you're doing any kind of item reports. Otherwise, you are going to get those deleted items, and your counts are going to be all over the place. Your information, even with list reports, no matter what, always choose that. Again, running statistical reports during non-peak hours or scheduling them for after hours really helps with performance. We've had some issues in the past where things have been slowing down because people are running quite large reports during the day. And just to talk a little tiny bit about security, when you're running these reports and when you're training staff to do these things, know what data can't be used or what you're not supposed to be gathering. For instance, say you wanted to contact all, and we've had this question in the past to myself, you want to contact all your library patrons to tell them about a special event. So you want to run a patron list report with the number of active patrons, so people who have had activity within a certain amount of time, who have email addresses, and grab the email addresses so that you can email them all. Well, unless you've received their consent that you can contact them for marketing purposes, you can't actually do that. It goes against FOIP. So knowing what you can and can't run, definitely keep that in mind. If you print out reports, if there's any personal identifying information on there, make sure you're shredding them. Don't recycle anything with personal information on it. And then again, going back and deleting the old files, both in the SimplyReports file maintenance, as well as your downloads, because when you download, it's going to you'll just be like, I don't even know, like the naming convention even of the downloads isn't very obvious. So you have to, if you haven't saved it as a different file name, you're just going to lose them on your computer. So keep your computer clean too, and delete those downloaded files that you're not going to need anymore. And at the end of the day, remember to log out. So the log out button is up in the top right-hand corner, very teeny tiny there. So you log out before there is a certain timeout, but it is quite long. So just making sure to log out. So at the end of the day, sometimes going through SimplyReports is going to feel like this. You're driving along what you think is solid ground, and then you end up face first in a bog. But with practice, writing out your formulas, trying, editing, asking for help, you'll get there. It is not as simple as the name would say, so don't get discouraged either. So you always have help from your friendly regional library staff as well. So thus concludes my dig for data here. If you want to stick around and ask questions, if you have a specific report that you want help building, I am here for as long as you need me.
A question came through, who is the best person to ask for help with these reports at Marigold? If you have questions about running SimplyReports reports, please contact your library services consultant. Let's see. Can you, Stephanie, we have a question here. Can you build a report with information of where they live?
Yes, yes, you can. So it's a little, so it depends on what you were trying to find. So the where they live field is a user-defined field. So that is a tricky, that's a great question. And that is a tricky one because it's not the language that Polaris actually uses, because where they live is basically a mask that Track has put over the user-defined field so that our users know it, but it's maybe actually other Polaris customers don't. So if you want to do where they live, so let's go, I'm going to do a count report. So you can do this. The patron user 1 is this. So I'm going to choose just AirG, you're my test bed for everything here. This is just quick and dirty right here. Here is your user defined. So those are all the where they live fields. So we can see however many. If you wanted one specifically under the filter user defined fields, that's where it will show user defined one. So you could type in, okay, I only want to know AirG, I only want to know Calgary, Cochrane. You type it in, but it has to be exact. Now, if you want to identify patrons where they don't have, it's not this, it would be a list report. If you wanted to have a list where they weren't present, say for whatever reason someone didn't put a where they live thing in there, you would click not present, have patron barcode as your as one of your outputs, and then it'll bring up all the barcodes of all the patrons that have nothing in where they live, and you could even have like the rest of their address or whatever and go in and edit those to clean up your data. The patron, so user 2, patron user 2 is patron guardian. That is standard across Track as well. But your local library statistics can also be gathered against. So here, just for example, patron user 3 at AirG, oh, they don't have one, perhaps. Maybe we'll go 4 or 5, see if there's anything in there. They have nothing. So sometimes you get nothing. I know that this, I think I have, because I have this clicked. Let's go here. So here it's listing all of the information, whether it's a drop down or it's free text. This just shows you what can be pulled. So that user, that was local library statistics, 1, 2, 3, this is all what's in there. So in this particular library, they have the free text on the user 3, welcome wagon coupons on that. So you can run statistics off of that. Hope that helps. Any other questions? The real thing is just to really get yourself, cross-reference the language with Polaris, and that user-defined field was a great question, because that is really, I think, the only one that is different between the two. And just kind of explore the field if you're looking for what you can, because you'll be able to find it.
Okay, I'm not seeing anything else come in. So I think really it's just to make sure everybody knows that please contact your library system, your consultant, your liaison there, if you do have any further questions once you start using SimplyReports.
And we all talk to each other at the region, so if we all help each other build SimplyReports, so it's collaborate as well.
Okay, I think we're probably okay. Nothing else is coming through.
Okay, awesome. Well, thanks everyone, and thanks Kaylee for organizing this. It's